All right. Let's see. Ashlynn, can you hear us? She's still trying to get in.
So they are having a fire drill right now. I apologize.
Wow.
Talk about perfect timing.
Talk about a storyline, right?
This is definitely
Okay.
interesting.
Hey, Google, I'm on a call.
That is too funny. All right. So I'll kick off the panel. We'll just get started. So thank y'all, and thank you, Jessica, for your help. Everybody's good. Everybody's cameras are set. Everybody has audio. Okay, perfect. All right, let's jump in. So thank you everybody for being here. My name is Amanda Keammerer. I am the CEO of Jobilude, and I am really excited to be a track captain this year for the second year in a row for the CyberTrack as part of the San Antonio Startup Week. And so this year, instead of 1 week, we have 1 month of San Antonio Startup Week events. And what I really like about that is that none of our events overlap with each other. We don't compete. And so we're really excited to have this time slot with you all in the audience to talk about cybersecurity in San Antonio. And so the name of this event is, if you know, the San Antonio Cyber Ecosystem. And the reason why we named it that is because we do have a lot of, I guess, a cloud of mystery around the work that we do in San Antonio, when really it's very basic. It's based on collaboration, innovation, and communication. And we're really excited to bring a sample of the work that's going on in our community to you all today. And so without any further ado, I'll just jump in and start introducing folks. So first, our first person I was going to introduce was Ashlynn, who is in the middle of a fire drill right now at Sam Houston High School, which is part of San Antonio Independent School District. And Ashlynn is the director of the CyberPTech program at Sam Houston High School. So we're really excited to have Ashlynn with us to represent the K-12 perspective and provide some insight into what's going on at the K-12 level with cybersecurity and how we're innovating in that space. Ashlynn is a native of Detroit, Michigan. Her passion for STEM began in high school, where she studied architectural design. She has a BA in social studies education from Kentucky State University and a Master of Education in School Administration from Cambridge College. She is here with us in Texas, and again, the Pathways and Technology Early College Director for CyberPTech USA at Sam Houston High School, which is partnered with St. Philip's College. So I'll let her talk more about that in a sec. Next, we have Nigel Leblanc with us from Cyber Warrior Network. So Nigel is an Air Force veteran, is the CEO and founder of Cyber Warrior Network. And one of the most exciting things that Cyber Warrior Network has is Cyber Wraith. And so I will not steal Nigel's thunder one bit, but I'm really excited to have Nigel with us to talk about his work with Cyber Warrior Network and how that came to be and his journey through cyber in there. We also have with us today Lieutenant Colonel Eddie Stamper, aka Thumper. So if you hear me refer to him as Thumper, just know that's normal. That is not anything odd, and he'll explain that as well. Thumper joins us from the Electromagnetic Defense Initiative over at Joint Base San Antonio. I'm really excited to have Thumper with us today. We have Irma Symons with us, who is the Human Resources Director over at IPSecure. IPSecure is a cybersecurity company headquartered right here in San Antonio, Texas, is really one of our model corporate citizens in the community, always volunteering, always raising their hand to help, always focused on workforce development and community. And we're really excited to have them here as part of the community writ large. Irma is a graduate of the University of Incarnate Word, where she majored in human resources management. She's also a member of San Antonio Human Resources Management Association, the Society for Human Resources Management, and the San Antonio Industry Liaison Group. She holds a professional certification in human resource certification from the HR Certification Institute, and she is also an SHRM certified professional from the Society for Human Resource Management. So we're really excited to have Irma with us with her deep background in HR. and particularly contributing to our cybersecurity community as we build out what those workforce development plans and strategies look like. And last but not least, we have retired Brigadier General Guy Walsh with us. So Guy is the inaugural executive director of the National Security Collaboration Center, which is housed at the University of Texas at San Antonio. And so in that role, Guy leads a consortium of government, industry, and academic partners working together on collaborative solutions to the nation's most difficult issues of national security and global defense. Prior to that, Guy was up in Fort Meade, Maryland, and worked with Cyber Command. And so we're excited to have Guy with us, and recently celebrated this past summer a year here in San Antonio. So we're really glad that you're here with us in San Antonio. We're glad to have all y'all as part of the community. And so we're just going to jump in since we have so many speakers. And one of the things I wanted to do was just kick it off with something exciting. And so we'll start, I'll skip Ashlynn. I'll go to Irma first. And so if you could share one exciting project that you're working on over at IPSecure and how that connects with the cybersecurity community here in San Antonio. Thanks, Irma.
Thank you so much. Welcome everybody to the San Antonio Startup Week, or shall I say month now, and also National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Appreciate your interest in the topic regarding San Antonio's cyber ecosystem. Again, I'm Irma Symons with IPSecure, and I've been with the company for about 5.5 years. I know that you asked for me to talk about one exciting project that we're working on, but I'm just so proud and excited to share about, you know, the efforts that our company has been involved in since I joined approximately 5 years ago. When I joined the company, we had approximately 80 employees. Since then, we've now doubled in size. So it's been a very busy 5 years for us. Again, we are a cybersecurity firm that was founded here in San Antonio by Mr. Jesse Rodriguez. He is retired civil service from Kelly Field. He was an electrician working on aircraft. And he sometimes jokes about being from the NCAA University, which is no college at all. This is a true entrepreneur who built this business from the ground up. And, you know, he's accomplished to make IPSecure a very, you know, successful business that's thriving. You know, some of the things that we observed as we talk about when you know, is, again, it's been mentioned that outside of the DC metro area, San Antonio is the second largest hub in cyber. We're known as Military City, USA. We know that we have a highly motivated workforce here. We know that San Antonio is a city that is an affordable place to live. We know that the people that are from San Antonio and live in our community, they love our city and they want to work and stay in our city. Some of the challenges that we encountered was more having to do with having more jobs than qualified candidates for positions. So this created a challenge from a staffing, talent acquisition standpoint. A lot of our hiring does come from the military, individuals who are transitioning out from whether they're retiring or spent 1 enlistment or 2 enlistment in the military. This is where a lot of our talent was coming from, and we want to continue to support that by all means. But what we also wanted to do is try to create paths and tracks for individuals who are not in the military or not in the industry or are maybe graduating from colleges or universities, and how they can kind of get their foot in the door when it comes to cyber and starting an exciting career there. So we came up with a call to action here at IPSecure to support programs that provide cybersecurity career tracks. We want to support our community in having access to in-demand careers such as cyber. We made some decisions as far as what the minimum living wage is going to be for hires that we make at IPSecure, and what the minimum cyber industry wage would be when we hire people here in San Antonio. So Again, going back to your question, you said one, but I can't help but mention several that we've been involved in. First and foremost, facilities. We invested in creating an office space in Port San Antonio, formerly known as Kelly Field. So we have a separate office location, wanting to expand our footprint in cybersecurity at that location. Mr. Jesse Rodriguez had the mentality, kind of like that movie, if you build it, they will come. That's precisely what we're doing, building a facility that's ready to take on new business or new customers or individuals that can come in and learn at our facility. Other efforts that we've been involved in since I joined the company is just getting more involved with commerce organizations, whether it's, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce or the Chamber of Commerce here in San Antonio. Working in education or with education, and I know we have someone here from UTSA, but we were one of the first private companies that committed to working with UTSA's National Security Collaboration Center. So we're really proud to be a part of that program and a partner with UTSA on that program. Also working with Project Quest. Project Quest is Project Quality Employment Through Skills Training. And so they started offering some cybersecurity cohort classes, some 12-week-long boot camps, preparing people to transition into a career in cybersecurity and sponsoring some hires there. A few other workforce development efforts that we've been involved in is working with the city of San Antonio on a grant in conjunction with Workforce Solutions Alamo and San Antonio Economic Development Foundation, and creating new jobs specifically over at the Port San Antonio area that we have a facility at. We also work with transitioning veterans through the Skill Bridge program, allowing individuals who are going to be retiring from the military spend the last 6 months of their service, possibly working for us, either at our headquarter office off of I-10 and Keammerer area or Port San Antonio, to just kind of get a little private sector experience as they transition out of the military and start pursuing opportunities in the private sector. Also involved with local government, supporting Proposition B, Ready to Work, and helping people who that have been displaced, especially now with COVID-19, find stable careers in the area of cybersecurity. We offer on-the-job training through work study programs and internships, and have some really good, collaborative partnerships with companies, our neighbors in Port San Antonio, Dynamic Advancement, Alamo AFCEA, Cyber Texas Foundation, again, Port San Antonio's Education Center. So, very, very proud about the things that we have been doing these past 5 years. I think before that, we were just kind of a company that was minding its own business, and realized, we want to be able to retain talent here. We want to give people here in San Antonio an opportunity to stay here, and so we're doing what we can to try to accomplish that goal. It's a goal for our company.
Awesome. Thank you, Irma. That is great. And I'm really glad that you brought up, of course, that San Antonio is the second largest cyber hub in the nation. I think that usually, at the start of a conversation surprises a lot of people, both within San Antonio and outside of San Antonio, where they're very much surprised by the depth of expertise here, the breadth of expertise here, just listening to the workforce development programs and initiatives that have been stood up just within COVID timeframe, right? It's really, really remarkable. And as hard as we are on each other as a community, we are pretty mature as a community. And so it's really exciting to be able to share that information with people through this event, and then also see what else we can do together. So thanks, Irma, for sharing those with us, particularly with doubling the number of employees within 5 years. That's really impressive. One thing I will say too is that IP is celebrating 20 years this year, which is such a huge milestone. And we're so proud of you all and the progress that you've made. So thank you for making time to be here with us today and to share some of those milestones with us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So next I'll kick it over to Thumper. So Thumper, when we think about Joint Base San Antonio, we think about Military City, USA. You know, oftentimes we think of our men and women in uniform who are serving in our country, just like you and just like Nigel. A lot of times we don't think about the infrastructure that underpins everything that we do to have companies like IP Secure, to have our schools like Sam Houston High School, to have our city running in a smooth and secure and safe environment, right? No matter what's going on elsewhere in the world. So if I kick it over to you to share an exciting project, I'm pretty sure I can guess what you're going to share. And I hope that a lot of folks in the audience are blown away by it. So Thumper, over to you.
Well, thank you, Amanda. And you know, it is interesting when you hear about the as you mentioned earlier, San Antonio is the second largest cyber, but it's also the second largest intelligence hub in the United States outside of the National Capital Region or Washington, D.C. That is one of the reasons why we were placed here. This is an experimental mission that I'm part of. And our job was to come up with a model or a plan or a way that we could keep Joint Base San Antonio. When you say JBSA and you look at the map, it really means San Antonio. You can't separate the two. They're integrally linked both geographically and population wise. And we talk about keeping it operational even in a degraded situation. Specifically, we're focused on EMP, electromagnetic pulse, but we're also looking at cyber, physical attack. And what we're getting down to is there are ways, either by nature, natural disaster, specifically a solar flare, or by intentional actions where the entire power grid of a region or even the nation could be taken down, and not just for days or weeks, but possibly for up to years. So we were tasked to come up with a way to address that. And we were placed in San Antonio for a reason. That Military City, USA moniker isn't just a bumper sticker. It's real. You walk around, you talk to people. A lot of folks do not realize that Joint Base San Antonio is the largest joint base in the Department of Defense by a pretty good margin. We have 11 installations, 75,000 military assigned folks, and that varies depending on the student load. But a lot of folks don't realize there's literally 500,000 dependents and retirees in San Antonio. So it is really a large factor. So anyway, as far as the one thing, we don't have one thing, but I do have two, and I'm going to just gloss over the one. We have a major underpinning from the national level. We've been partnered with by Department of Homeland Security, Department of Energy, Department of Defense, and one other department I can't talk about just yet, but they are coming on board and we are becoming pilot test for the nation to develop these hardening strategies. But the thing I do want to talk about, especially in this forum, we called it a bolt-on mission because it wasn't our original purpose, but it was added by Lieutenant General Quast, who was the 3-star Air Education and Training Command that started us about a year and a half ago. It's 5G. His original task to us was to make sure the military concerns and military needs were part of the commercial rollout of 5G, or were included in the considerations for commercial rollout. That initial guidance has developed, and it's particularly because of our partnership with UTSA, National Security Collaboration Center, and Southwest Research Institute. If you're not familiar with them, they are a national level R&D program just west of San Antonio proper. But through that, we came up with a group of people that spanned the country from Georgia to Seattle, a bunch of researchers that got the attention of the Department of Defense. And this past June, we were selected to be one of about 11 DoD 5G developmental sites. And in fact, they gave us 2 of them. So we're sort of we've become the anchor for the DoD 5G movement. And what we're doing, we've got about almost a dozen people on full-time staff. They're hidden in a seldom used building outside of BAMC on the east side of town, northeast side of town. and they are charged with developing 5G-based telemedicine applications the military can use. And obviously, if the military is using it, it'll roll into the civilian world. And then one of the other things that's very exciting, we can't talk about it much because it's also highly classified other than we can admit it. We've been charged with developing the military security protocols for using 5G. And that is going to be supporting the other nearly a dozen 5G sites around the country. But that's also going to end up setting a standard that will become 5G security for America. And that is a multi-year project. And it's literally just stood up in the last 2 months. I mean, it's at the point where they literally got monitors last week. They're getting racks of computer gear is showing up regularly. And yeah, I can't go into the full numbers, but we're talking tens of millions of dollars over a 3 to 4 year period. We also see the potential of the 5G mission actually expanding considerably, and this could become the center of excellence for 5G for the Department of Defense. Now that's us forecasting. That's not the plan right now, but we're looking at everything going, this looks to be the direction it's heading. So we'll see. So that's our big exciting news. Our 5G thing just kind of exploded from a bolt-on mission to one of our primary efforts.
Thank you, Thumper. And I think, sometimes y'all don't realize it, but you give me like my top lines for how to brand and market San Antonio. And I love hearing 5G security for America. Things that folks would probably never think that we do here in San Antonio, right? And that it's connected to military, yes, but you also mentioned, it's tied to innovation overall, it's tied to security overall. It's built on collaborations. Both you and Irma have already mentioned UTSA and education and the importance of it. And I think, having those connections is not easy, right? San Antonio makes it look easy, but in some communities it is not easy. So it's really exciting to hear the overlap in this conversation already. Thanks, Thumper. So next, we'll stay on the education theme and we'll go over to Ashlynn. So Ashlynn is over at Sam Houston High School where we have a CyberPTech program. So Ashlynn, do you want to share what's one of the most exciting or two exciting projects that you're working on over there?
Yes, I'm just honored to be here, first of all. So thank you for this opportunity. I did want to share, it's hard to narrow down one or two exciting things about our program simply because our program in general is unique. We are the first CyberPTech in all of Bexar County. And so we're very excited about that. PTech stands for Pathways in Technology Early College High School. And we partner with St. Philip's College, which is also a national center of academic excellence in cyber defense. And so St. Philip's College is delivering our dual credit courses to our students in our early college program. And the goal is to ensure that our students, upon graduation, will leave with an Associates of Science in Information Technology Cybersecurity Specialist. And along the way, our students also earn industry certifications so that upon graduation, they will be able to go directly into the workforce, or they can take their credits and transfer them on to a university to continue the pursuit of a 4-year bachelor's degree. So that in and of itself is super exciting. In the developmental stages of CyberPTech, what we did is we did do an evaluation of the high wage, high demand careers available in San Antonio. And of course, with San Antonio being the second largest cyber hub for the United States, we selected cybersecurity as our pathway. And so in doing that, we had to do all the legwork and put everything together to develop this program, which took about 2.5 years. We currently have 124 students in our program pursuing a degree, an associate's degree in cybersecurity. They are able to earn different certifications such as A+. They're earning their Security Plus certification. They'll earn a level 1 certificate But what I wanted to point out is that initially our students, when I began to speak to middle schoolers about cybersecurity, they really did not have a clear grasp on what is cybersecurity. And so my approach to them came from, you'll be the technology police, and that's what your job will be. And so they bought it. And so we have several students in the program. The aha came when just having conversations with our 10th graders, they have grown so much from last year, but now when we have those one-on-one conversations, they are beginning to see, oh, this is a good career for me. This is an awesome opportunity, even though some of them want to go into nursing or into finance. They're discovering that cybersecurity is in every aspect of life. If you go to the bank, there's some form of cybersecurity. If you work with the hospital, there's some form of cybersecurity. So they're beginning to learn that just because they are doing this pathway now, doesn't mean they can't still accomplish other goals and desires that they have for their career. They're learning how they can integrate the two. And I really love that. So that was my first glow about what we're doing here at our program. I want to add a second glow, and this is dear to my heart about our program, is that all of our students are at risk. One major point about PTech is that it is geared towards at-risk students. At risk meaning these students may have failed a grade before 9th grade. Some may be parents. Some may have been homeless. Some just various aspects of the term at risk. Most of these students fall into that category. And for them, a program like CyberPTech is a game changer. Most of our kids are economically disadvantaged. So once they graduate, whether they go to college or whether they to pursue a 4-year degree, or whether they stop at this associate's degree, they have the opportunity to pull their families out of poverty. And that for me is something that is very near and dear to my heart for these kids. We love kids here at Sam Houston. And so to see that their lives can actually be changed and then see generations of changes by completing this program. And when the kids do the math, when we start talking about dollars of what they're making working at Taco Cabana and what they could be working in 2020, earning when they graduate in 2023, they're like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna stay in this program. I think this is beneficial. So the kids they're performing and doing well. So we love CyberPTech here. We appreciate all the support from the city. We've had so much support from Amanda and other members in the cybersecurity community. So thank you. We're here. Our doors are open. If you ever want to know more about our school, please reach out. We have great, amazing kids. Y'all would love them. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashlynn. I love the 2 glows. That's really cool. I like that terminology too. I'm telling y'all, people think cyber is boring and we're stuffy and we're hiding in a basement, but y'all are amazing marketing people. There's so many one-liners in here that I'm trying to scribble down as we go along. And I think to your point too, Ashlynn, one of my funniest stories I had when I first moved back home and I graduated from Breckenridge High School is I was talking to Cyber Patriot high school students, and I assumed when they were talking about working at Whataburger and they're in cyber, I thought, oh, you have an office job. And they're like, no, miss, like burgers aren't going to get hacked. So there is some work, right, to translate from what they're doing, even if they are flipping burgers, that's valuable experience that they can bring to the corporate side of the house, right? So maybe you're working for McDonald's, serving food today, or Whataburger serving food today, but being on the cyber pathway can bring you to the corporate side, to the operations side, to the security side. And both those experiences are valid, right? Like all of that is valid. And so I really like how Irma kicked off with the NCAA, no college at all example, to talking with Thumper and 5G and Ashlynn with the students in high school, and really trying to figure out how to bring people of all ages, out of poverty and really have this shift in our community towards building out that talent pool. So thank you, Ashlynn. Keeping with education, I'm going to kick it over to Guy at UTSA. So what's going on at UTSA, Guy? What's the most exciting thing you're working on at the NSCC?
Good afternoon, Amanda. So yeah, plenty of excitement here. So I would say that for those familiar with both UTSA and the NSCC, we've really got three primary aspects we're working on. One is the education piece. And I think I'll go back to Irma's point is that, what we want to really do here is hire from within our community here in San Antonio and Bexar County and not have to go out, if we're going to be the leading, the second leading place in the nation for whether it be intelligence, cybersecurity, national security issues, to be able to build that type piece there. And so it's about building the education and curriculum that UTSA has been doing for 50 years now, building in some of the science, data analytics, and some of those areas there. Also becoming a world-class research institute. And for those of you who are familiar, it's called the Carnegie rating system, but very specifically, there's a rating system that puts the colleges in tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 organizations. And we are right on the threshold of becoming a tier 1 research institute for the United States. And that's a huge leap that we're doing there. And I'm going to talk about why or how we're getting there. And then the last one is all about that workforce development to make sure that as Irma is looking for those folks that they need at IP Secure and that we need for the 11 installations at Joint Base San Antonio and for a lot of the startups that are out there right now, we're trying to develop that, right? So we've always talked about or heard about the gaps that there are between the cyber workforce and what the requirements are. And Irma pointed that out right at the beginning, be able to identify that. And the way you do that is you have to start with changing your curriculum so that we are coming across those skill gaps between what is happening, whether it be the earlier part talked about with what we're doing at PTech, with what we're doing at associate's level degree, to what we're doing here from bachelor's to master's to PhD programs. And we're trying to bring all those together. So in terms of what's exciting here, let me start with one, and it goes back to, and I'm going to keep transitioning. What are we doing here for the community, but what are we doing for America in terms of Thumper's words there? But on the America side, on 1 September, UTSA and the NSCC was very proud to announce that we stood up an organization called Symons. That was the official startup date. I think sometime around the 12th of December, we'll probably have the Secretary of Energy coming out here to do something more formal. But that organization is the Cyber Manufacturing Innovation Institute, run by Dr. Howard Grimes. So if you look at our organization, the National Security Collaboration Center, we have about 7 or 8 different centers and institutes, each of them independently operated and independently run under UTSA and under the NSCC umbrella. But in this case, it's a $120 million investment by the Department of Energy and by, I think we have about 28 different partners in there from industry and other universities from across the United States. And we're really looking at how we bring manufacturing back to the United States and how we do that both effectively in terms of much more efficiencies, as well as security in terms of a cybersecurity perspective on that. So that's probably, I would say, in terms of trying to change and bring back manufacturing to the U, that's probably our biggest new piece of that. The other part, and I'll just go back to yesterday, actually. Many of you are familiar with Dr. Greg White. So we always talk about competition. Somebody mentioned CyberPTech earlier in terms of the K through 12 competitions that we do, in terms of the high school competitions. In college, it's called CCDC, the Collegiate Capture the Flag type competitions. 6 or 7 of those are all run by Dr. Greg White and his Center for Infrastructure and Assurance and Security. Yesterday, Dr. Greg White, working with MITRE and Department of Homeland Security and others, rolled out the next iteration of what's called the CyBear family. So for those who have talked to Greg before, you're familiar with Smokey the Bear, and you can associate him with forest fires and awareness of what causes those. The next one was McGruff and taking a bite out of crime. And this is really that national level security awareness. And yesterday they recognized Dr. Dorothy Denning at a Naval Postgraduate School as one of the leading founders in terms of cybersecurity for the nation. And so there was a big event that Greg put on yesterday. So that's Cyber Family. And then the final thing I'll close there on that is something that we've been leaning forward for the past 3 months. We've been moving up to the 5th floor of the North Paseo building. We've more than doubled our space up here in terms of collaboration space, laboratories. I talked about Symons is co-located with us. We built out the artificial intelligence laboratory led by Dr. Darisha Kadithi-Putty there. And then, but sometime in December here, we will be doing the ribbon cutting ceremony and breaking ground to start the new National Security Collaboration Center. I know that's been in the papers this week talking about that, but we will actually finally be putting shovels in the ground to start that project with the city of San Antonio, with many of our sponsors. And that facility, which will be the National Security Collaboration Center, combined with UTSA's School of Data Science, will be completed in July of 2022. If you're familiar with our downtown campus, it's probably about a 10-minute walk due east from there. If you go to due east, just past Market Square there, we'll be right next to the new federal courthouse and across the street from the San Antonio Police Department. So we look forward to breaking ground and moving forward. That facility will again double our current size here at our location, as well as bringing in 4 of the different colleges into the School of Data Science. So those are the exciting things happening here up at UTSA and the NSCC.
Awesome. Thank you, Guy. And thank all of y'all. I know we have one more person. Last but not least is Nigel. So Nigel Leblanc is the founder and CEO of Cyber Warrior Network. And so as you all in the audience can see, we have representation from K-12 perspective, from higher ed, from industry, as well as with our startups here with us. I think I skipped somebody. Oh, and military, of course. So Nigel, over to you to share what is going on with Cyber Warrior Network and what are y'all working on?
Thank you, Amanda. I want to thank you for having me as part of this panel. Very humbled to be part of a pretty impressive panel, by the way. So a couple of things that we have, I'll touch on some of the things that we've accomplished and what we have going on. One of the things that we were the first cyber warfare esports program to participate at DEF CON this year. We held a tournament and it was facilitated within Red Team Village. And out of that tournament, we are now interviewing the top 25 out of that tournament. And one of the things that happened was there was a 14-year-old girl who placed in the top 25. So it was pretty impressive. And we had essentially all the employers were kind of fighting to talk with her and kind of going through the whole permissions with parents and all of that. But anyways, so that turned out to be a pretty cool event. Last weekend we hosted a tournament with the 960th and the 33rd, which falls under the 16th umbrella. A pretty good event there. And just out of the blue, the civilian kind of say, hey, can I join this tournament? And he joins, and they're looking to recruit him right now. He did so well within the tournament and as part of one of the teams. And this weekend we are participating at Grey Hat, and we're hosting another tournament there with kind of the same MO, where we're gonna try to place some folks. So for those of you guys who don't know what we do at Cyber Warrior Network, essentially we've created the Call of Duty for ethical hackers, is the best way to put it. And so while people play the game, we're validating their knowledge, skills, and abilities. So hands-on keyboard experience, we're identifying skills gaps, and we can match them to real-world job opportunities. On the education side, we can also match that to curriculum. And then we take that data and we present it in a pretty nice package with an analytics dashboard that you can see the performance and then kind of predict the career pathway, either within industry or education. Our aspiration is to be the first cyber warfare esports league on a national scale. And we're hoping to work with the city of San Antonio, especially with the upcoming launch of their esports arena. So I'll kick it back off to you, Amanda.
Thank you, Nigel, and thank you for representing our startups. I think a lot of times, it's fascinating to me from my perspective to be, in the middle of the ecosystem, right? So I really like connecting people. I like learning to see what's going on in our community and bringing people together. And I think this particular event was super fun to put together for San Antonio Startup Week because it represents so many different perspectives, so many different pathways to cyber experiences, contributions. And I think it's just so cool to see in San Antonio how much partnerships, collaborations, respect for different experiences matter. So it's really fun to see, for example, Nigel, from your perspective as a military veteran and now entrepreneur, right, and a family guy, and then have folks like IP Secure and Irma and her team working to build out this pipeline with a company that's been here for 20 years, right, focused on community, is still very successful, is growing, as well as hiring from within. And then having folks like Guy and Ashlynn really training up our next crop of leaders of all ages, right? At the high school level, K-12 level, within higher education. I think it's just speaks so much to San Antonio's community. And then, of course, like we mentioned with Thumper, is there's infrastructure underpinning all of this, right? There are so many things that we cannot see that are being protected every day through the work of our federal folks, our military folks, our commercial folks, and entrepreneurs and others here in San Antonio. And so I think one of the biggest takeaways we wanted folks to get from this is that there's a place for everybody in cybersecurity in San Antonio. There's a lot of work to be done. And as you all know, we're about less than a week from November 3rd. So the policy nerd in me would be remiss if I didn't mention, these partnerships and collaborations and experiences and expertise are all important. We need our students to stay curious and engaged, and then be involved and engaged in the workforce piece of this, and attaining those skills in creative ways. So I really like what Cyber Warrior Network is doing with Cyber Wraith, in terms of gaming and thinking ahead of it and trying to just be different. So thank you for being here with us as well. So with that, I will kick it over to the audience for questions. And we do have one question around software architecture. And so I'm not sure who this really should go towards. I guess maybe Nigel or Guy, if you want to speak to this, but it's asking about stored procedures when accessing data and software architecture. So maybe around who accesses your data and how you protect that within your organization.
So specifically our organization, or is this just like a general question here?
It sounds like it's a general question in terms of policies on stored procedures when accessing data. So maybe in the spirit of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, like what are some things that y'all are doing to be secure?
Well, let me answer it this way. We had one of our panels during DEF CON was about essentially software developers and how they create secure software, and then the policy that kind of drives that, right? So what really comes from the IT versus the CISO, and how they kind of work together, right? So interestingly enough, one of the research papers that kind of talked about was, and I forget the name, but I'll get it to you guys. But essentially talks about how the policy is driven from securing information from the production side before any company can even just, let's say you get software, right? All the rigmaroles you got to get. So they're auditing all the way back to trying to make sure that the software is developed in a secure fashion. And then the policies internally inside of that organization is from a need to know perspective, which is kind of very, very familiar with military, right? In terms of your security clearances and all of that. And one of the, even in our organization, we had to kind of implement this very early on in terms of making sure we're separating the data that from our candidates, which is completely separated from the forward-facing customer side, right? you know, even going through DEF CON, we were kind of like fingers crossed, right? And we definitely got our security got tested, to put it that way. But luckily we had, you know, we had the peoples and the procedures in place in order to kind of weather that storm. And I think I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Colonel Stamper, or probably General Walsh, to answer more on the big policy there.
So I'll just throw out a couple things there, Amanda. And one is just, first of all, from a university perspective, in terms of the university. So for those familiar with our structure, we have what's called the university's Technology Solutions Group, run by Kendra Ketchum, and Nasos is our director. He's the chief technology officer there. And UTSA has just invested about, I mean, I think our total cost was over $15 million, but if you look at the package, it was a $30 million investment in our IT, and I'll say IT and IoT type security aspects on that, particularly. So if you're familiar, the number 2 person at Dell Technologies is a UTSA graduate. And so one of our partners, obviously, with that is Dell Technologies, who's one of our NSCC partners, also with Cisco, one of our partners. And overall, in terms of the protection of the university's software and the architecture there is run there. On the research side, one of the partners we're working with is the Air Force's DevSecOps organization that is right here in San Antonio. They're called Level Up. And when you look at the word Level Up, that UP is called Unified Platform. And the Air Force is the executive agent for that piece of that, how we store data, how we analyze data. The business portion of that, I believe it's called Platform One. Every one of these things is called something one, right? And so we're actually going to be working with the Air Force on the aspects of that software development and looking at Platform One, the business portion of interactions, and working with them on that. And that's we're in the early stage of that, but we're very fortunate here in San Antonio to have organizations, not only 16th Air Force, but in this case, the Air Force's software development group that we're working with.
Got it. Thank y'all. I hope that helps to provide more insight over to the audience member that asked that. I know we're winding down on time. If you can believe it, it goes by so quickly, which we knew it would with so many cool people on one line. So what we'll do to wrap up is we'll start, we'll start at the top again. And maybe if there's one thing, we're still in the middle of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. As we're wrapping it up, we're looking towards November. November is also has a week of cybersecurity career awareness. And so, maybe if you take a second to think of, what's one thing you hope that people are doing to be cyber secure and cyber aware, particularly going towards the elections, going towards the new year, for folks looking for jobs, in this space. So if there's one piece of advice that you have for folks listening, what would that be? And so we'll start, we'll go backwards with Nigel.
So one thing that I would recommend for people is don't be discouraged if you are not a technical person, right? My background, I'm not the ones and zeros guys. Matter of fact, I'm not even allowed to touch any technology within my startup, right? So I started as the cyber warrior, the cyber security manager, veteran program manager for the state of Maryland, right? And put it on Cyber Maryland and all of those things. So don't be discouraged if you don't have an IT background. And if you do, I think one thing our platform kind of demonstrates is that if a 14-year-old girl can come in and crush it, right? There's nothing stopping you from going out and investing the time, right? And I think you kind of touched on this, Amanda, earlier on. In every stage of business, right? Somebody will have some skill that will be beneficial to a cybersecurity driven type of organization, right? So that's it. Don't be discouraged. Invest the time in yourself. If you want to take the jump and move into cybersecurity, because there's 3.5 million jobs to be filled, right? Coming next year, just go ahead and do it. And then I'll kind of piggyback on that. Reach out to folks. You know, you probably, you know, a couple of degrees of separation to somebody who's involved in cybersecurity or in the IT industry. So network and kind of put yourself out there.
Thanks, Nigel. So Irma, I'll kick it over to you. Any final thoughts or advice or suggestions for folks looking for jobs or looking to stay cyber aware?
Irma, you're still on mute.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No, I was thinking back to what Ashlynn mentioned earlier about the different industries, whether it's healthcare, financial services. We've talked a lot about the military and national security, but anywhere you go, really protecting critical information assets is going to be paramount no matter what setting you're in. My advice and guidance is to try to put yourself in a business or corporate setting or organizational setting that will allow you to maybe grow from within. Just like Nigel was saying, if you don't have the IT background, that's okay. You can always start off in a corporate environment or in an organization that you can grow from within while you're taking other active steps, whether it's pursuing a certification or attending sessions such as these or any other conferences related to the industry that will kind of help put you out there and put your name out there and express your interests so that companies can hopefully nab you up and get you into a position where you could just learn. It's always changing, it's always evolving. You're always going to be learning in this.
Got it. Thank you, Irma. What about you, Thumper? Any words of advice?
Well, I'm the least cyber person here. My whole career has been focused on destroying someone else's infrastructure, so it makes me a good guy to figure out how to protect ours. My 13-year-old informed me he had mad hacking skills, and then he showed me how he'd hacked the school computer to change the test. So I was proud and horrified at the same time. But as I listened to all of you, the thing that I would encourage is to realize that everything is interdependent. You know, if from a guy whose job is to make things break and now to keep things from breaking, I can take something out with cyber. I can take it out with a shotgun. I can take it out with any number of things, and we're all dependent on that infrastructure. It keeps us safe, it keeps us warm, and it keeps us economically viable. So I just encourage all of you to keep doing what you're doing, especially those of you that are developing our young people. Someone has to turn my kid into a white hacker. I'm counting on y'all.
Thank you, Thumper. I think that's a good segue over to Ashlynn, no pressure, to give us some words of advice from your perspective.
I love what Thumper said. And with that, what I would say is that if you have, my piece of advice would be whoever has a student, a nephew, a niece, anyone interested in cyber at all, or maybe they don't have an interest, introduce it to them. Don't be afraid that it's too overwhelming for them. Kids rise to the occasion. They develop interests you don't know that they have. They're very young and their brains are still developing. So expose them to the opportunities that exist in cyber. Allow them to get involved. Don't be afraid to seek out the right educational facility for your student or your nieces or nephews, whatever the case may be. But I would say just encourage young people to develop other interests. They don't know they're interested until they're exposed. So expose them to the world of cyber. It's really interesting and good for them, and they'll come to love it.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashlynn. That's great advice. And last but definitely not least, Guy, Walsh, any final advice, parting words for us?
Yeah, I want to continue on Ashlynn's point there. Very simply, is that we spend a lot of time talking about the downtown facility and being able to do this research, but I want to really talk about that bottom floor because that is what I'm calling the education center, and the fact that it's in downtown San Antonio. And I'm going to come back on mine and Thumper's background. Is we got interested probably at young ages about flying airplanes because you either rode by an airport or you met somebody who flew an airplane. And other folks do the same thing because they've met a doctor, they've met a lawyer, they've met a policeman or fireman, and they've been exposed to that and say, I want to do what you do. We don't have that in what we're doing in cyber and cybersecurity. And so the most exciting thing that I have from downtown, and exactly like Ashlynn says, I want to start getting these folks from the area that are, from K through gray. Some people call it K through 12, K through gray, but the idea that getting them exposed and say, that's what I want to do. And then each of us can take that the next step. Hey, whether we're talking to the next door neighbor, hey, you can do this stuff, and encourage people to do it at those ages. We don't have to wait until they're ready to go to college here to do that. We need to start encouraging that as soon as they're able to pick up that, whether it be a iPhone or a toy iPhone, whatever that is, and encourage them to do that. And I want to have 100 PTechs all over the place here. And that to me is the most exciting thing. Don't get me wrong, it'll be great to be a tier 1 research institute. It'll be great to be all this other, but if we can be making a difference on that ground floor at an education center and having these PTechs and be influencing that next generation, that's where success is going to happen.
Thank you, Guy. And thank all of y'all again for participating in today's discussion. I'm really excited. Speaking with you all always energizes me that we're on the right path. We're definitely one team, one mission, and we're focused on, bringing folks together, securing our nation, securing our community, and figuring out what that next step looks like together. So thank you everyone for joining us. Just a reminder that this conversation is recorded and it'll be posted to San Antonio Startup Week's YouTube page. So we'll share that link out. And of course, this month is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So please be cyber aware, be careful with your settings, check your privacy settings, look at social media, what you're sharing out, and feel free to contact us with any questions. And thank you all, and we'll see y'all soon. Be safe out there.
Thanks again, Amanda. Everybody take care. Thank you.
Thank y'all. Bye, everybody.